everyone, back at it again in my little yellow kayak. I just launched the kayak and we're headed out onto the lake. Got a beautiful late summer, early fall day here. It's about 50 degrees when I launched. I got my layers on. Peel those off a little bit later once I warm up. I've got an early start, so the sun's just trying to peek above the tree line there. It's not quite made it. We've got light winds. I think they're going to be from the north a little bit later on. Bright blue skies, a few wispy clouds, but once that sun gets up over the horizon, it's going to be a bright sunny day. And what that means is that conditions are going to be a little bit tougher than they are when it's cloudy and when there's a front coming in and I got more wind. But that's alright, we're going to catch them anyway. I just have to finesse things up a little bit and it'll be a good day. Or a good morning anyway. Alright, let's kick it into fast forward mode. This part is always easier in fast forward mode. Goes a lot faster too. Got a little bit of sea smoke on the water. See it a little bit more as I get further into the lake. And that's caused by a temperature differential between the air temperatures, which are around 50, and the warmer water. So I started off fishing a fluke, but this is the Bass Assassin Shad. It's a 4-inch fluke that's just a little bit smaller, and instead of having an open belly slot, they put in extra plastic on the belly. So even though it's a smaller bait, and it's lighter than a super fluke or a Bass Assassin straight tail shad, it still casts fairly well. I've got it on a 7.2 Corrado medium light and a little Micro Monster BFS reel. And I got my first fish. They're a little slow to start. You can see the sun's above the tree line now. There we go, I'm on the board. Not bad. Shortly after that, I switched over to the freeloader. I'm going to show you right here. Tennessee shad colored freeloader, 1/4 ounce jig head with a loop knot, and I put some Pro Cure herring scent on there. And I wasn't doing too much with the freeloader, which is kind of surprising because I had been doing really well on that bait, and it seemed like the fish were just a notch or two slower. But I had some schooling fish come up, and so I went back to that fluke, that Bass Assassin Shad, and I'm just twitching it on the surface or just under the surface. I had one miss it, and then he came back for it. But these are kind of bonus fish at this point. And it took me a while to really get them dialed in. And I think that's because of the conditions. This bright sunny skies. We had a front come through, so it's post front too. We had some rain overnight. And the fish are just a little lethargic. Nice little largemouth. So in between casting for busting fish, schooling fish, I was fishing the freeloader like a Damiki rig. So in case you're not familiar, the previous way I've been fishing the freeloader is strolling. So I'm casting out, I'm letting that bait hit the bottom, and then I'm slowly winding it in while shaking the rod tip the whole time. Damiki rigging, at least the way I'm doing it, is I'm fishing vertically underneath the boat. I don't have any electronics, and I'm just drifting with the wind, but fishing that bait pretty much vertically underneath the boat and shaking it. So it's like strolling it in place. But the Damiki rig's been around for a long time. And it seemed like the fish were just a little bit more lethargic today, and they didn't want to chase a bait. But they'd still eat if you hung it in their faces and just shook it for a while. So in this scenario, location becomes really important. And I had a little help with the location because of the fish were busting on the herring on top. So I knew I was in the right general area. And if I just kind of drifted through them, eventually I'd run into a school. Just like that. Well, let's see what this one is. I think this was a largemouth. Now typically you do this kind of fishing with electronics, and it would definitely be easier with electronics, but I'm not, I didn't bring any with me today. There he is. Nice largemouth. Get the pliers. Pop that hook out. It's a single hook, so it doesn't really hurt him too much. Off he goes. Let's do that again. So basically I've got that fluke rod on my right there, right on the front deck, and I'm ready to cast if any fish pop up. And in the meantime, I'm just drifting and shaking that Damiki rig. And once I wore out the freeloader, I switched over to a Strike King Z2, a full-size Z2 in the deal color. And since I knew the fish wanted it roughly in place, I tied on a Palomar knot and pushed the knot back on the jig head. That's a trick I use ice fishing too. But what that does is keep the bait a little bit more horizontal than even a loop knot does. A loop knot, sometimes the bait will hang at a 45-degree angle, and if they're aggressive, it's not a problem. But if they're a little bit slow, a little bit lethargic, you want that bait just as horizontal as you can get it. Anyway, they ate the Z2 just as well as the freeloader, and if I can get them on a Z-Man bait, which is 10 times more durable, I can catch a whole lot more fish on the same bait for longer. And yeah, it's just one of those things that if they'll cooperate and eat the Z-Man plastic, I'd rather do that. But for now, I'm sticking with the freeloader. It's working pretty well. And with the loop knot on the front, I have the versatility of casting that bait and strolling it back in. Or I can fish it vertically like I'm doing right now. And it seems to be working pretty well. It's all about finding that school and getting them fired up. Once they're fired up and you can stick with them, they tend to eat pretty well, even on bluebird sky days like this. There were a couple other boats out. I didn't see them doing too much. And I think the fish were just a little bit slow because of the conditions. But if you adapt and adjust a little bit, you can have yourself a pretty good morning. That looks like a little better fish. Get my thumb on him. Yeah, not bad. Another nice largemouth. Nice. Yeah, there he is. Like I said, I don't have any electronics on the boat, so I'm kind of going by memory on where the fish like to position. And I'm in about 20-25 feet of water, and I like to be about 5 feet up off the bottom. If you stay too close to the bottom, there's two things that happen. You get more little perch and things like that pecking at the bait, and the fish need to go down to get your bait if they're, say 6 feet off the bottom. But if I'm around 5 feet off the bottom, I'm roughly in line with those fish that are around 6 feet off, and the fish that are nearer the bottom, they're going to come up towards the bait, and generally you want them coming up. They seem to eat better than going down. Yeah, there's another largemouth. Switch colors on the freeloader there. That's a green pumpkin chartreuse, and it kind of looked like a perch to me. Seemed to work just as well too. Oh, I got some more schooling fish popping up. That didn't take long. They like that little bass assassin shad in the crystal shad color. Looks a lot like the herring. Looks like kind of any bait fish. But I can kind of keep tabs on where the fish are by where they're busting and schooling. And then I can set up a drift to run through them, or just wait till they pop up again. See if I can get another one on the fluke or the bass assassin shad. The bass assassin shad I fish with lighter line. Here I'm trying to V-wake it on the surface. Sometimes they go for that. Put the rod tip high, it reels as slowly as you can while keeping that fluke on the surface. Sometimes they go for it. They didn't in that case, but I'm going to keep casting where they were blowing up. Try a couple different retrieves. Sometimes you can get them if you go a little bit fast. I'm going a little bit fast there. And you see that fish? He came completely out of the water trying to get that bait. And he got it. And that was just a change in cadence. You know, they didn't want it V-waking. They wanted a kind of fast retrieve on the surface. It looks like a herring trying to escape. But you just have to kind of play with them and see what kind of retrieve they like. You don't want to just do the same thing every time with a fluke, even though it works. You could do a jerk pause retrieve and do very well, but I like to mix it up and see what triggers those fish. There's no fish showing, so I'm back to Damiki rigging. I'm looking around, see if I see any fish busting on top. I got that fluke ready on the front deck. And I'm just going to shake. I'm probably shaking a little bit more than I need to. Sometimes little shakes and pauses are good. Sometimes longer pauses. But I'm doing all right with it, so I'm just going to keep rolling with it. Another bass. Largemouth. Gotcha. They're eating it pretty well too. That means I'm doing something right. When they have it on their back crushers, that means they like the color, they like the presentation, all that good stuff. Back to Damiki rigging. Just letting myself drift a little bit with this light wind. Hoping to run into more fish. It didn't take too long, you know. I was doing pretty well with this Damiki rigging. And I probably would have done even better with a fish finder. But these fish, they didn't seem to want to chase when they were down low. They're fairly inactive, but if you just shook something in their face long enough, they'd eat it. But they didn't want to chase a strolling bait. Well, that one got away. That's all right. Catch another one in a minute. I think this was my next drop. I've got the Strike King Z2 on now. And I'm going to push my knot back. See that? I push my knot back on the jig head, and that helps to keep it more horizontally down below the boat. I'm going to let it all the way down to the bottom, and then I'm going to give it a few cranks to get it up about 5-6 feet off the bottom, and then I'm going to start shaking it again. And it doesn't take too long before I get another one. Shake. You feel them pop it, just lift up. Because I have a double line knot on the jig head now, I can horse them a little bit more than with a loop knot. Another thing about this technique is that I only fish this in shallower water. So the max depth is usually around 28 feet that I fish this. You can fish deeper for schooling fish with electronics, but you have to make sure that the fish are 28 feet or higher in the water column. They could be over 50 feet, but as long as those fish are down around 28 feet or less, it's no problem. If you bring them up from 50, 60 feet, they can get barotrauma. Same problem that scuba divers get if they dive too deeply and come up too fast, or people in submarines. You have to come up slowly and let the pressure in your body equalize. Well, the same problem happens with fish. They get gases inside of them expanding, and it can hurt them, damage their internal organs, and sometimes they're just unable to swim back down. They get bloated. So anyway, my solution to that is just I don't deal with needles or fizzing them. I just only catch fish that are shallower than 28 feet, and then no problems. And I got another one. Yeah, this turned into a really productive day, and to be honest, I didn't know it was going to turn out this way, because the conditions I knew were going to be tough, but I didn't know how exactly I was going to get them. And when they were kind of refusing the freeloader, strolling early, I was thinking, oh boy, this is going to be a tough one. And it turned into a really good morning. I was catching them one after another for a while. Anyway, it's time to head back now. Caught a bunch of them, put a bunch of fish in the boat. And this is a Muscovy duck out in the middle of the lake. I'm not sure if he's somebody's pet duck, or maybe he's been released by someone at the lake. But he's somewhat tame. You know, if you did this to a wild duck, they'd fly away, or, you know, scamper away quickly on the water. This one was pretty tolerant of me. Anyway, seemed like a nice duck. Well, the star today was probably the freeloader and the Strike King Z2 in the deal color. I used two different colors of the freeloader, Tennessee shad to start, and then that green pumpkin chartreuse. I don't think the color mattered too much. It was more the technique of Damiki rigging and fishing vertically, because those fish just didn't seem to want to chase. And then I added a few bonus fish on the Bass Assassin shad in the crystal shad color. That kind of helped my tally a little bit too. Plus it's always fun getting them on top. Okay, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Just like all my other videos, I'll put all the gear, rods, lines, reels, colors, all that good stuff in the video description, so you can duplicate what I was doing out here this morning and hopefully have some good success wherever you might live. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!